The Ukrainian Defense Forces used long-range drones, deep strike, 115 times to strike Russian invaders in June. Oleksandr Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, announced this after a meeting of the High Command. However, he did not specify whether these strikes were exclusively against targets on the territory of the aggressor country, or whether this number also includes strikes on temporarily occupied territory. Yes, during June, Ukrainian defenders performed 115 fire missions using deep strike, Syrsky wrote on social media. For example, on June 27th, Russian Su-34 fighter bombers were hit during a Ukrainian drone attack on the Marinovka military airfield in the Volgograd region. According to Astra sources in the aggressor country's army, 3 aircraft were completely destroyed and 2 were partially destroyed. This was a joint operation by the Security Service of Ukraine and the Special Operations Forces. On the morning of June 28th, deep strike units of the Defense Intelligence, DIU, attacked a Russian Army logistics center, Arsenal, in Bryansk. Loud gunfire and a series of explosions were heard in the city, followed by a fire. The Russians also released the first evidence of the combat use of Ukrainian Peklo drones, which destroyed a car bridge across the Idar River in the Luhansk region. After the attack by Ukrainian UAVs on June 14th, the Novinomysk Azot plant, which supplies components for the production of explosives and rocket fuel, was suspended. According to photos and videos released by local residents, a large fire broke out on the factory premises after the drone strike. In June, deep strike attacked the Russian Special Economic Zone of the Alabuga Industrial and Production Complex in Tatarstan, where Shahed drones are manufactured. Strike drones also attacked the airfield in Buturlinovka, Voronezh region, where the 899th Guards Assault Aviation Regiment is based. A former top official of Russia's National Guard has been arrested on suspicion of bribery and abuse of power, the latest in a string of arrests within the powerful internal security agency, state-run media reported. Viktor Strigunov, who served as first deputy director of the National Guard until late 2023, was taken into custody by law enforcement, the TASS news agency reported. A spokesperson for Russia's investigative committee, which probes major crimes, confirmed to the RIA Novosti news agency that Strigunov is under investigation in connection with a major state construction project in the Kemerovo region of Siberia. According to investigators, in 2014, Strigunov, while overseeing a multi-million-dollar state contract to build a training facility in Kemerovo, gave the order for the project to proceed despite existing restrictions that should have halted it. The project was ultimately never completed, resulting in losses to the state exceeding 2 billion rubles, $25 million, the investigative committee spokesperson said. Strigunov also allegedly accepted over 66 million rubles, $850,000 in bribes from representatives of private companies between 2012 and 2014, investigators say. The payments were allegedly made in exchange for his protection and patronage in the execution of major government construction contracts. Strigunov, a veteran of the force, was appointed as first deputy director of the National Guard in January 2020 after heading the National Guard's Siberian district. Though he stepped down from his post in the autumn of 2023, he continued to serve as an advisor to the agency's director, Viktor Zolotov, a longtime ally of President Vladimir Putin and former head of the Presidential Security Service. The case is part of a broader series of criminal cases targeting senior figures within Rosgvardia, an agency established in 2016 with a mandate that includes riot control, anti-terrorism, and internal security. At least 3 other senior officials have been arrested on corruption-related charges since February. Major General Konstantin Ryabik was arrested in connection with a large bribery case. In March, Nikolai Chepkasov, head of the Guard's main Center for Information Technologies, faced similar allegations. Major General Mikhail Vorontsov, who led Rosgvardia's Department for Digital Development and Information Protection, was also arrested on fraud charges in Moscow in April. In the Orakhiv area, a Russian soldier attempting to surrender was eventually killed by his own side. After raising his hands and following a Ukrainian drone, his commanders noticed and ordered artillery fire. When that failed, they deployed a Molnia kamikaze drone, striking him directly. Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance captured the incident but couldn't intervene. Russia continues to enforce a brutal policy toward its own soldiers, forbidding them from surrendering under any circumstances. Units that attempt to retreat or lay down their arms often face threats from so-called barrier troops positioned behind the front lines, tasked with executing deserters or those trying to escape the battlefield. There are growing reports of Russian commanders ordering summary executions of soldiers unwilling to fight or those who attempt to surrender to Ukrainian forces. Even those who survive captivity and are returned to Russia through prisoner exchanges face no reprieve. Instead of being demobilized or given medical care, many are immediately sent back to the front, often without rest, proper equipment, or rehabilitation. This cycle of coercion and punishment reveals the depth of dysfunction within the Russian military system. Fear, not morale, is being used to hold the ranks together. For many Russian soldiers, the war is no longer about ideology or duty. It's a trap with no way out. The promising Russian heavy strike drone Altius crashed as a result of electronic warfare measures. This was reported by Russian media outlets citing the Ural Civil Aviation Plant. It is noted that during the flight, communication with the drone was jammed by an unidentified electronic warfare device, which disrupted satellite navigation. After losing communication, the drone switched to an inertial navigation system and attempted to land. The Altius was conducting a test flight over the Kazan region of the Russian Federation and, as a result of losing control, crashed into a private house in the Kazanka 3 gardening community. The Altius U was developed by the Simonov Design Bureau in Kazan since 2011. Flight tests began in 2016, and in 2018, the project was transferred to the Ural Civil Aviation Plant in Tatarstan. The aircraft made its first fully automatic flight in August 2019. It took off from the airfield, performed the planned maneuvers in the air, and landed successfully. Altius U has a wingspan of 28.5 meters, a length of 11.6 meters, and a takeoff weight of 7 tons. The maximum flight altitude is 12 kilometers, the range is up to 10,000 kilometers, and the autonomy is up to 48 hours in the air. The payload of the multi-purpose drone includes an optical reconnaissance station with an optoelectronic system and a side-looking radar station with an active phased array. In the summer of 2021, during tests, the UAV used aviation weapons against ground targets for the first time. Russian propagandist Solovyov is demanding answers, as it's almost a year since Ukraine launched its operation in the Kursk region, and it's still unclear who exactly is supposed to bear personal responsibility for it.
Now it's almost been a year, right? Well, in a month, since the invasion of the Kursk region. And who's to blame? Well, yes, it's clear. The enemy is strong and cunning. It's all clear.
And when will a severe analysis be done? The harshest. Why did this happen? When intelligence data was received, who processed it? To whom was it passed? Why were such decisions made? Who and how? Why manage the allocated material and technical resources, human resources? When was the decision made?
Whose responsibility was this zone? Who is the commander?
What personal responsibility did he bear? How did the civilian authorities act? Indeed, what happened with the fortifications? Which structures were erected by the engineering troops, and which by the civilian services? Which ones exactly? What companies were involved? What amounts of money were spent? So, answers should be provided to each of these questions.
And so, I hope the time will come when it will be detailed, by the minute, what happened, why it happened, where the information went, and why there was no response. And based on this, everything will be resolved clearly, simply, and plainly.
Heroes are rewarded, the guilty are punished.
Russian media claim that Lavrov said Russia is ready to take excess highly enriched uranium from Iran, process it in Russia, and return it as low-enriched fuel, allegedly for Iran's peaceful nuclear program. Trump has promised to send more weapons to Ukraine. We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They need to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard. We'll have to send more weapons, primarily defensive ones. So many people are dying in this mess, he said.
On Ukraine, Mr. President, planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. So many people are dying in that mess.
Russia is actively using cooperation with Chinese companies to bypass sanctions and ensure the production of drones for the war against Ukraine. Bloomberg has reviewed internal memos from the Russian company AeroKit and its correspondence with Russian government officials. The documents reveal how Moscow has leveraged its friendly ties with Beijing to circumvent Western sanctions and gain the capacity to produce drones for attacks on Ukraine. The documents, provide a previously undisclosed example of Russian-Chinese corporate cooperation in the field of defense technology. The documents show how sensitive technologies can move from China to Russia, even though Xi Jinping's government claims it is not supplying either side, the publication states.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.